Welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast that has the science and the screaming to unequivocally determine what the best movie is of any given year. I'm your host, Mike Ravano, and this year is 1996, so remember that Cleveland rocks. Throw on your choker, and we'll see you at the crossroads. Before I introduce this week's panelists, know that this show is also a game in which points are awarded for well-made arguments, cogent thoughts about the film, jokes, and anything else I feel like awarding. The winner will be my best friend for a week and have voting rights, and of course, bring me my daily basket of blueberry muffins no matter how diabetic I get. And now, it is my undue honor to introduce three beautiful babies we'll be talking to. Your first panelist is Greg.
Mike, I have to say it feels bad to keep bringing you the muffins when the doctors are just begging you to
Dr.
stop.
Capros, my real doctor, really wants you to stop doing that.
But man, you stick to it. That's what it costs. That's what it costs to win, which is why, frankly, I've taken a little bit of a sabbatical from winning. Greg Heads, if you notice that is a conscious choice I'm making. I'm trying to uplift the show by not ever winning anymore.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that means the other winners are bringing like double baskets because they think they truly hate me. One of those panelists, another beautiful baby, is Ryan.
I really, truly want to thank Greg for all of his work this season in allowing me to win by not trying, just to save Mike's feet from getting sawed off.
Which would be your dream.
Not a lot of people know, but Mike's real doctor is he's like a Civil War reenactment, and that happens with his methods as well. So he just has
a literal sawbones.
Old sawbones out there.
In his office, it's disturbing. There's movie posters, which is a red flag. I don't want movie posters. I want where I want to see my muscles or a skeleton. But the movies up there are Tusk by Kevin Smith, Human Centipede, and Saw.
Yeah, that's bad.
We are joined once again, our third beautiful baby. It's iFanboy's Conor Kilpatrick. Conor, thanks for joining us.
I'm back. I'm a returning champion, right? That's how it works?
I think you are a returning champion.
Yeah, you got the belt.
Yeah, if you had lost last time, I'm sure we wouldn't have not begged you to come back, please.
I'm happy to be here.
Winners only. This is the winner's circle. That's
we're all
the
winners.
Name.
We've all got claws and fangs.
We're all bears.
Which is why people want to run into us into the woods. Is that meme too old to reference?
No. People still
Good.
get that.
And they always will. Let's talk about Swingers. Conor, we gave you a list of 1996 movies, and I don't think it's unfair to say you slobbered all over picking this one super quickly. So what's your history with Swingers?
I did. I snaked it from my co-host. Swingers, I feel like we're all of a similar age, and we're probably all of a similar interest. And so I think this is a very important movie for people of my age and my interest who at some point harbored delusions of making films or coming out to, going to LA and making movies. And this is a very important one. I think you sandwich it with Clerks earlier in the decade, and you've got this whole idea that you can just go out with your buddies and make a film, and Miramax will pick it up. But I first saw this movie. I looked this up to make sure I had it right. In dramatic script writing, spring of '97 in college. It had come out obviously the year before, and our professor showed it to us, and it just hit like a bomb. Like everyone in that class became obsessed with it immediately because it felt like us on there up on the screen that we could just do this. We could get a documentary camera and go out with our buddies and shoot a thinly veiled version of our lives. And then on top of that this was 97. In 98, I went out to LA for a semester because my school was in New York and we had an LA program. And so it felt like I was then in Swingers because it was and the swing culture was still around. We were still watching those Gap commercials and dressing like that and wearing bowling shirts out to clubs. We even went to the.
Did you go to the Derby?
No, we went to the three clubs though, and we went to Formosa Cafe a lot. Even though I couldn't find it in the movie. It's listed as one of the locations. So I couldn't figure out where in the movie it was, but it just felt like we were living that lifestyle for a couple of years until we all decided, wait, this whole swing thing is crazy, and we just forgot it happened. Which I love. I'm not knocking it. It just came and went. And I can't imagine even explaining to a kid that for about 3 or 4 years in the 90s, we all thought we were in the 40s again. But
There's a gas leak.
I love this movie. I mean, I know we're going to get into it, but it's just one of those seminal you can go make a movies that I don't think gets made anymore, right? Or also one of those, hey, we're not getting good parts movies. We should write our own script for ourselves to become stars movies that also I don't feel like it's made anymore in Hollywood. So I just it's just terrific.
It feels like a baby of the 90s for sure.
Yeah, there was that brief moment in time where you could go and make a movie and you could become a star and have a career, and that just doesn't really happen, I don't think.
Good. We don't need any more Favreaus and Limans just bulldogging their way into Hollywood. Greg, what about you? Were you a swing kid?
I was not a swing kid, but certainly this movie did drop like a bomb in just the way that Conor was talking about. And I felt like, I was so obsessed with movies at this time. I have two different times in my life where I'm obsessed with movies. I'm living through one of them right now. But before that, it was from the time I was in like middle school till the time I got out of high school, just like totally obsessed with movies. And so they're like very real feeling to this. Also, like I was in high school and they're like 24 or whatever in this movie. And so they seemed like they were adults. They were doing it. They were like out there, not just making the movie, but like within the movie, talking to girls and like
just real mature dudes out there. Living
exactly.
Their life like adults.
I tell you, one of my favorite things of watching it this time around has been like, man, the word baby's thrown around a lot. These guys are babies. They really are. They're like, I thought they were the coolest people in the world, and now they just look like little tiny children. And I think that honestly, I wouldn't want it any other way, because I have the experience of watching it as a young man and then experience of watching it now. And it's two different movies, and they were both speaking to me. And I don't know. I think it has maybe taken a slight step back in my estimation, but that's just because I was pretty obsessed with it when like it first came out.
Right, guy?
Yeah, I'm right there with both you guys. I think that, I probably say this once or twice a season where you put on a movie and you're shocked. You've seen it a couple times, but you're shocked that you have it frame by frame memorized. You are saying the lines. Like there was not a single thing in here that I had not seen 1 billion times. And just in my head, it was like, oh, I've seen that a couple times too. I do think one of the most important things, though, is that Clerks is, we feel it here, along with all the movies they force us to feel. But Clerks is definitely here. But to me, as time went on, Clerks became very East Coast. Like they talk in a different way. And it's not even accents. I don't know if it's like all the characters in both movies talk fast. It's reference ridden. But there is something about I think it's because the East Coast is black and white in real life, and so is Clerks. So that's... But this was, in all the ways that it could be, what my friends wanted to do, whether it was making movies or just be able to act like Vince Vaughn and come off like we thought Vince Vaughn did then. Not how I think Vince Vaughn comes off now, which is probably how I came off then. But this movie was just everything. I remember all the posters on the wall, and as a... Mike, you and I have this in common. As a ska kid, I didn't actually go to swing clubs, but I could understand their plight of people just looking at them like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you listening to that?
Look, I'll listen to the Scroll Nut Zippers, but I'm not going to go to a goddamn swing club. I hate to admit it here, I'm a little younger than you guys, and so I didn't see Swingers till probably 10 years after it came out, but the filtration system, I was still a tubby middle schooler with a bowling shirt where the buttons were dice and there was blue velvet lining on just the central part of it.
Hell yeah.
And I wore creepers and I took swing lessons. Had no idea it was because of this movie, but I was so cool.
The whole how young they are, it reminds me of how young I was when it came out, but also I just want to call these characters and you guys have no problem. Your life is fucking awesome. Stop complaining.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If you
Mike's
want
in a movie. He's got a movie part.
yeah. You were in a movie. I want.
One movie. I'm a bus driver. I've been here 6 months.
6 months. If you guys really want to see in your future, Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau and all the characters, rent one of those fake pregnancy suits and wear that around. That's what your life is going to be like. Don't have any worries right now.
But see, that's the thing about the 6 months. I think that's a good point, Mike, because that shows you when you are 24, 6 months is not the same thing as when you're 43. Like 6
Yeah.
months, like I turn around and 6 months creeps by me.
Yeah.
But when you're 24, you're like, I can't believe how long everything is taking. And that's part of the beauty, but also kind of the tragedy of being that age is like, you don't see it for what it is, but like also you're not as like burdened by time's passage.
If I had a friend when I was 24 say, I'll see you in 6 months, I would say, I will never see you again.
I'll be a completely different person, my man.
Now I have so many friends where I don't see for 6 years, and it's like, oh man, I feel like I just saw you. Yeah.
What's new? Nothing. Okay, cool.
Other than you wearing that pregnant suit again, that's weird.
It is interesting though how you perceive the characters, at different times in your life. But I was thinking that it's similar to the people who miss because I think you're supposed to think these guys are kind of not cool. At least,
yeah,
tools.
Like it's baked in the story, just that you don't see it when you're a kid because they seem so cool.
Yeah,
but it's like the people who throw Gatsby parties. Like you guys missed the point of the book entirely. Like it's all in there, but all you're seeing is the glitz and the glamour, and you're not understanding the point, which is Mike only succeeds in the movie when he lets go of Trent's, actions or lessons and everything. I think it's just fascinating how you notice it more when you're older.
Yeah, but also the idea that like Mike is like, I'm a man now. I've achieved mastery over myself, and now I'm ready to enter the world of men. And you're like, you're still just a baby, you stupid little baby. Like you barely controlled yourself one time, and now you're like, I have the stillness of manhood upon me now.
I would ask for the rest of the movie if when we're talking about the character we say Mikey.
Yeah, because it was getting confusing.
It does feel like, and like Mike's
I'm being
like
attacked
this,
here.
Yeah, it's for such a common name, it's rare how
anyway, Mike's
often
an idiot.
It comes up.
Yeah. Greg's like, because Mike is such a dumb piece of shit. Mike's like, oh, I thought we were going to say Mikey. And Greg's like, I said what I said.
No, I didn't misspeak.
I think, though,
All
speaking
right.
to all of this, though, real quick, sorry, Mike, is like, I think so many movies like this that were slicker, higher budget, more studio made, they would skip this one crucial part very early in the morning where they have jacked each other up about Vegas. And then it cuts to clearly like an hour later, and they're both not just about to fall asleep, but so fucking pissed at their recent life decision. That's hanging out with dudes right there. Like,
okay, because
man.
If for listeners who may not know, if you drive at absolute top speed, the shortest it could possibly be is like 3.5 hours, right?
That's breaking lots of laws,
and that's really going fast. So what happens?
Optimum conditions, and nobody else is trying to go to Vegas. That's what that is.
Just like the movie, what happens is you leave and you're so fired up, but then you can't sustain that for 3.5, 4 hours. It's not possible.
No, such a funny smash cut, and I didn't remember that. I did not remember that this movie is a comedy, I think. And then throughout the movie, I was like, is this funny? I don't know. But I think I've come around to yes.
It's okay. It is like touchdown hilarious several times. Like there are moments where it's dramatic for a while, and so you kind of forget. And then there's always a stinger of a joke that is like literally laugh out loud, even if you're by yourself. Funny, I think.
Yeah.
All right. My money, beautiful babies. We got to take the quickest of breaks, and we come back. Let's get into Swingers. The story behind Swingers feels like it could not happen past the 90s. Decades before he was one of the creative engines behind the MCU, Jon Favreau wrote the script in 2 weeks.
Oh.
Cast actors he was buddies with and got the director Doug Liman, who was roommates with the line producer Nicola Loja. They shot over 18 days, used real house parties for scenes, and even had real bar patrons as extras. Big Bad Voodoo Daddy? They are just pals with Favreau from his time at a bar that they were the house band at. The indie comedy is about a group of swing kids and Hollywood wannabes farting around as they try to succeed in getting laid, and to a lesser extent, in their careers. The film explores the wasteland that is your 20s, male friendship, creative pursuits, and of course, trying to pick up money, beautiful babies. Honey babies, I ask you this. What is Swingers' view on gender dynamics and dating? What does the movie make of Mikey's friend group and of the men in the movie in general?
I think the major argument of the movie is that for most young men, the only important relationships in their lives are with other young men. And I think that there's a side of this movie that is very beautiful, which is that these boys are pretty supportive and nice and like emotionally available for each other. And I think that that's nice, and I think that that should be celebrated. But the their view of women and their like interaction with women is that's the thing that changed the most in my opinion of the movie, is the vision of what women are in this movie is like a little disturbing or a little detached. Like the movie has no idea what women are, what they would want, or what they would think.
Well, Mel Gibson's movie hadn't come out yet to let us know.
There's a shocking amount of introspection, though, that for 20 somethings. There's a lot of long scenes where they're talking about Mikey's feelings.
Yeah.
And, how to get over them and why his relationship had to end and why he needs, like, it's almost to a shocking degree. There's a level of, guys in their 20s don't often talk like that or are thought to talk like that. But a lot of them being here for each other in the movie, which was interesting.
Yeah, if you're a screenwriter who knows the director and is worried about the budget, then you write the dialogue scenes as long as possible, first of all. But I think it's very clear, particularly on this rewatch, that they are so comfortable with each other, and it's sort of unclear how long they've all been hanging out as a group. Like Sue seems almost like a satellite sometimes, maybe not part of the main core. Mikey
because they all come from like back east, right? And Sue comes from Anaheim.
LA. Yeah.
Anaheim, yeah. Mikey, it's not LA. It's Anaheim. They don't even have a baseball team. Mikey and Trent seem like the closest. Like that's the most idealized, I think, male relationship in the movie. And then him and Ron Livingston,
Rob.
That goes way back. Rob.
Rob.
He,
no one will ever know.
He sort of gets introduced halfway through the movie. And then there's, I think, Charlie. So, but we have these guys that it doesn't matter how much they know each other, how long they've known each other. They feel so much more comfortable with each other than they do around any girl. And that includes Trent, who completely, that's like, look at how easy it is to hook up with these babies. Bitch, you're being a fucking asshole. And like, you're getting laid in spite of how you act. Like you're a tall, handsome guy, but like you're being a piece of shit.
Also, is he? Because we see him pull a number and rip it up. So we just know that him and Sue say they hook up, but we don't know if they actually do hook up. We just see them lie about it.
Well, he hooked up with the Vegas waitress.
That is true.
But that was interrupted. So
right, but he did close the deal.
There's a way in which Mikey realizing that Trent isn't everything that Trent acts like he is also makes that become the reality of the movie too. Like I do feel like Trent early on is shown like he is not being he will be dishonest with women, but in a way he's very honest with them because he's like, this is what I want and this is what I'm going for.
Mm-hmm. He even tells them that they would appreciate being if he's honest. Like you're not wasting their time. You're telling them exactly what you want.
And he's shown to be successful. He does pull that waitress and her friend. And like he probably could have had either one of those girls. So like,
there was a point that night where a threesome with Mikey filming was on the table.
But by the end of the movie,
filming and crying in the corner.
By the end of the movie, certainly like even reality has reduced Trent to where he like thinks that mother interacting with her own child is literally like her hitting on him. Her child was just who was sitting at a different booth, which is weird.
This can be.
Yeah,
this
the
is
kid
sort
was
of
too small to do that.
It's like a skit-y movie. It can be like you could feel that, maybe a lot of funny ideas were written and moved around and put in and pulled out. A lot of the movie is just them hanging out, and so that makes it possible, just like Clerks. But the fact that is the final one is so important to that relationship of watching Mikey arc the entire time. And I say Mikey because this Mike has never arced. So
never will.
Watching Mikey
Ripped
arc.
up every phone number I've gotten.
I refuse.
But then also having it like the nadir of our time with Trent is just that's such a perfect way to go out.
I did like though that so I watched it twice in the last 24 hours. So I've seen a lot, but I was really watching it hard.
Yeah.
And even though they're assholes, like it's like a spectrum, right? It's like I think Sue is on one end. I think Rob is actually the opposite end of Sue, and then you've got Mike and Trent in the middle, and it's like which direction are any of these characters going to go at any given time? But even then, each of them have moments of humanity where you see, okay, there's a chance that these guys will get better as they get older. And for Sue, it's after Mikey gets Lorraine's number and they're at the diner, and Trent is being out of control, and he's like, well, I guess I'll call her. And Sue starts to say, you don't have to do this like Trent says. He says, you can call her whenever. But then Trent cuts him off. Like, there's a moment where Sue actually says, you don't have to play the games if you really like her. But Trent doesn't let him have that moment. Even Trent has the moment after Sue insults Mikey, and he goes running off when they're in the Musso and Frank parking lot. That's not the Dresden parking lot. And Mikey's
LA
like,
guy.
Or Trent's like, you're being an asshole. So there's all moments where they really do care about each other. It's whether they can claw through the haze of being these people they think they should be being in their 20s.
I think, too, that's probably the most, I don't know if cinematic is the best word, but that's probably the most structured shot scene of the movie. Doug Liman was clearly coming in here to fucking get it done quick. But that scene where Trent's in the parking lot watching Sue go this way and Mikey go this way and trying to figure out where his loyalties lie and, like, who is Trent really? Who are his friends? You know, I can't keep myself together because all the, like, in an inside out way, all the parts of me are separating right now. You know, I think that was very intentional on Lyman's part.
Ryan.
Do we think the movie and the young men who made it look down on women, or are they just highlighting how certain dudes in their 20s look down on women?
I think the men in the movie are, as depicted, have
characters.
a low opinion of women.
Right.
I mean, I for Mikey, I know it's probably like self-preservation or something, but like the way his casual like throwing around the word skank, he clearly like.
Oh yeah, he has that mini monologue real early on.
Yeah,
he's hurting.
Oh, I get why you're alone.
But he's manifesting that hurt through misogyny. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
And then
he's trying to seem cool.
Yeah,
with his friends, you know.
And they will certainly like degrade women as a group activity to bond with each other. And so I do think that is like something that you see a little more clearly. I think the movie is commenting on it ish. Like, I think there's an awareness there.
I think there is, because the arc of them changes by the end. So I think if they don't start off, like, if he's just calling women skanks a lot in the beginning, and by the end he's like, this is dumb, I think it's got to be commenting.
Maybe I'm the skank.
But
we were all the skanks all along.
To me, the journey seems so internal. It seems like he just learns to control himself. Like, he wants to call Heather Graham, but Heather Graham has to be like the perfect girl, right? She has to look like Heather Graham. She has to be so into him. She has to, I just don't think, like, because it's like,
I'm so glad Conor turned his camera off right there.
Conor.
I got to look for my wife during that scene, but
what he's looking for is vulnerability in the same way that he has, you know. And I think that some scenes that really line this up is the aforementioned ripping up of the phone number, because we have all the friends. He returns to all the friends, probably expecting to be like carried out on a chair for being so fucking dope. And Rob, the newest guy to the crew, is like, "Well, that was bullshit. Like, you're an asshole." And then we get different reactions across the spectrum.
And even Sue thinks it's a dick move. I think. Yeah, I think they're all over the place, but I think they're just trying to figure out, like we all are at that age. Like, I look back at myself at 24, and I was an unrecognizable person to who I am now, and I would not want to be held accountable for the things I did or said, especially after a bad breakup. I mean, I certainly remember being in dark places, not calling people skanks, but certainly not in a way I would be now after a dark breakup. But
yeah. And going back to the 24-year-old thing and how important 6 months is, a breakup, but that, in your 24 years, is the worst thing that has ever happened to anybody ever. You know?
They were together 6 years, so they were together since we're assuming he's
That's
24.
True.
Trent says he's 24. We're assuming Mikey is as well, but let's just assume he is. So that's 18?
Yeah.
18 to 24? That's your whole adult existence. You think you're never going to be with anyone ever again? I was definitely in that position in my early 20s where I broke up with someone and I thought, I'm never going to be with anyone again because no one's going to want to be with me. That's exactly where he's at. Because you just don't know any different. Until you meet somebody, then you're like, oh, well, maybe I will. It's tough. I thought that was actually, as uncomfortable as it is, it's actually a really interesting portrayal of guys in that time trying to figure out their emotions.
Yeah, and I remember comedies back then and now just being so like balls forward, like alpha male, like you know, it sort of, there was a break between Swingers and I think the Apatow movies, which was only 7 years, but I'm young enough where 7 years is like a lifetime. Where all you did was say, like, at all times, I'm glad that skank is gone because she's a skank. And here, the first scene is Rob already, like, taking so many bullets for us because he's heard this story a million times. This is our first, but at least Rob is like taking it for us, you know? This is all Mikey talks about.
to everyone, clearly.
Oh yeah, and I have to say, if I have a problem, like any problems with this movie, part of it is because Conor, I totally agree with you, which is like I look at myself at 24 and I'm like, you're as problematic dude as these other guys are, certainly. And I was definitely Mikey in that, like, stuck on a girl and talked to everybody I knew about that, you know, like even like when I'm talking to other women, it's like I always turn the conversation to that. So like if there's any like contempt I have in this movie, it's for myself, as always.
Good point.
Right.
And I knew Greg and I were hanging out when he was 24. And so
Yeah.
if he was the Mikey, I was absolutely the Marty and Elaine, just playing jazz standards behind him.
No, I'm one of like 4 different people, Ryan, that would say I am Mikey to your Trent for sure. There's like,
And for so much of my life, that would have been the biggest compliment.
I know,
It hurts me
now you
so
should
much.
be devastated.
But now you finally rewatched and realize I thought
You've
about
grown
Fight Club
up
a
and
lot.
you've grown up and you've grown up.
Grown
Ryan.
It reminds me a lot of Fight Club in that dudes watched it and didn't get the message.
Yes.
And instead of being about your relationship with the monster in yourself that's super hot and sexy, it's the relationship between your Mikey and your Trents.
I will say that I do think ultimately Trent is a good friend. Like I think he leans selfish sort of inherently, you know, like he's got different concerns than maybe what is always exactly best for you, but how supportive he is and how little he feels that need to like constantly roast like friends of dudes always think that that's the goal. I don't know. It's when he's with Mikey, he's a peach.
Leopard.
When he's with anybody else, he's a maniac.
And things he wants Mikey to do, he will ruin other people's. Like Sue is hooking up, and he's pulling Sue's face off of a woman to watch Mikey maybe get a number.
That whole time of like
It's
Sue keeps telling this girl the story, and Trent's like, I was with you the whole day. I don't remember you going to make a phone call at any point.
Oh, he's chiseling in there, dude. He is obviously trying to get in on that. He's trying to drive a wedge in between. And that's what's her name, right? Elizabeth?
The producer is one of those girls and the voice of the ex-girlfriend.
Oh.
Yeah.
It sounded just like Dante's ex-girlfriend in Clerks.
Yes.
That's just how women sound in the 90s.
Did you guys see who played the waitress from Vegas?
No.
She seemed familiar, but I couldn't place her.
Dina Martin. Dean Martin's daughter. He's a very clever naming father, and that's kind of weird. It's almost. Do you guys remember when Nicolas Cage was such an Elvis fan? He married his daughter.
Yeah,
it's like they just had to get some piece of Dean Martin in this movie.
Wow.
All right. On that, we're gonna take the quick break. When we come back, do a little shopping.
I'm gonna pop some tags. Only got $20 in my pocket.
That's right. It's time to do some shopping. We're all going to run through and fill our carts with that one janky wheel so it sticks. So we're all even. We all have stupid carts and try to get as much cool shit from this movie as we can. The order is thus. Conor gets guest rights. Greg gets Greg rights. Ryan gets Ryan rights.
Okay.
That's nonsense.
So what are the objects that can go into the cart?
Anything. No matter how big or small or philosophical.
Yeah, you feel free to get you make your case for it, Conor. So like sometimes experiences could not people, but experiences can be something.
Want to stress? Not people. Do not buy people.
Yeah.
Scratching Heather Graham off this list. I mean, this is the dumbest answer, but if we could take anything, I could use a house. So I'll take the house in the hills that the party's at, the model party.
Hell yeah.
I'm an LA renter, and the only way I can get a house, I think, is to steal it from this movie and put it in my cart.
Fun true story about that house is there was the real party going on, like we said, and people like Mike White, who would go on to create White Lotus, and Adam Cordero, who would go on to become Adam Scott, we're just there, and we're like, what are these fucking dorks doing filming at our party?
Yeah, there's a record scratch moment where everybody turns and looks, and I wonder if that was organic.
They said there's a pretty fun oral history of this out there, and they said none of them knew why that was happening. They're just like doing these weird whispered little scenes while we're just trying to get drunk.
Man.
Well, I did notice, this is unrelated to the party, but I noticed in the bar when he goes up to Lorraine, the two guys on camera
God.
right look right at the camera, and the one guy smiles right at it.
Like,
And they look away, and then they look back at the camera again, and then I was just like, oh, I didn't notice that ever before.
me neither, but it was like somebody home videoing a birthday party. Just
Yeah.
like look in the camera and wave as goofy as you can.
We have been those people at like public things filming,
Oh, for
and
sure.
we didn't make swingers, so it's not as good a story.
All right, Greg. Party house is off the table. What do you get?
I saw it in Scream, and I was like, man, it caught my eye, and now here we are, featuring majorly in this movie too. Those chunky white cordless phones. Ladies and gentlemen, kids at home, can I just tell you, this was the golden era of phone. Like, you're detached with that, but the signal is strong. There's that presence. Cellular phones have lost all the presence. There used to be like a real connection. You felt like you were in the same space as the person you were on the phone with,
Right.
but you'd have that cordless headset, so you're moving around your house, Those were the days. We didn't know how good we had it. I was 15. And can you believe it? I imagine that was at the perfect time in the world was back then. And it's
Also,
represented by a big chunky phone.
He hit a button on his phone, and then that made a friend come in with OJ and a sandwich. Like, that's a cool
Yeah,
phone. I
that's a
wish
good button.
I had that option.
A friend that's way cool with him not having any pants on.
Yeah.
Ryan, what do you got?
I'm this is not usually my bag or my lane, but I think I just got to take Trent's car. They made it obvious that Trent was the leader if you just look in the parking lot, because everyone else had like Subarus and Isuzus and Mikey's red piece of crap, but Trent's car, which he always had the top down at the perfect time, because convertibles are fucking awful. Everyone hates them. You can't hear anything.
Yes.
But you just know right when to take that top down. It's perfect.
The 1964 Mercury Comet Caliente, the car with too many names.
Yeah, the older I get, the more the cruising cars look really cool, and that's a great for just like
Comfy.
sitting back and going 30 miles an hour.
The speed everybody should be driving. What are you trying to get, kids?
Especially in LA, dude. The roads are twisty.
All right, we're going to go a little swizzly serpentine style. Ryan, it's back to you.
I know that there's other things on the table, but man, watching this movie, my fingers were itching, and I would love a working Sega Genesis with NHL 95, where Wayne Gretzky's head just pours blood out.
Yeah, dude.
Little Wayne's legs twitching.
Yeah, twitching legs.
Another fun story from that oral history is Doug Liman and the editor were trying to get that shot, just the two of them. They were playing for hours, couldn't. Woke up Jon Favreau. He come in, did it for hours, couldn't. Woke up Vince Vaughn, who it was like 3 a.m. He drove over, did it in like 5 minutes. and he was like, that game's fun.
The Vaughn effect, dude. And like, I also think it's as great of a guy as Trent can be. The perfect moment is where he says, "Leave it paused," and so Trent's like, "Okay," and then slowly looks up at his friend, and then back down and unpauses it.
We've all done that.
Yeah,
That comes from a golden era of EA sports games where they were like getting away with the most wild things. In the football game, an ambulance would drive onto the field and it would just drive over players,
but not help any of them. Just the one.
Yeah,
guy.
No.
it would just hit them.
Send other ambulances for them. Greg, on to you.
Okay. We were talking earlier about the scene of like the let's go to Vegas tonight, and you're so fired up, and then there's like a big pause, and then you're like, oh, this is such a long trip. It takes 3.5 hours to get there, and we're out of it. But then there's that other moment where you come around that bend and you see that city just shining, just all the lights aglow. That moment is the best part of Vegas. Everything from that moment on is completely downhill. And I want to distill just that moment. Just go as far as seeing Vegas and being like, tonight's our night, gentlemen. Cut. And then we're out of Vegas. We don't have to have the putrefaction of the experience.
I love very existential pick.
I thought you were gonna draft the Vegas Strip, but
Yeah, just the whole strip.
just that in a vial.
Just that moment, gentlemen.
Connor, what do you got for your second pick?
How many total picks?
We're gonna say 4.
Okay.
4 picks.
I know I just took a house, but I'm going to go the opposite direction. And I really want Trent's tie that he wore in Vegas. The retro diamond tie.
Nice.
It's so cool. It's so retro.
And anytime in this movie you could find something that you could wear today
Yeah.
that isn't a fucking bowling shirt, you got to grab it.
What do you mean? All these outfits you could pull today? No?
Mike is slowly shutting his closet.
All right, I forgot to say it, but Connor won that first round with the party house.
Connor.
For the second round, when we have Trent's diamond tie, seeing Vegas, and a working Sega Genesis. You know what? It's hard to argue the emotion of seeing Vegas and thinking tonight's gonna not be dog shit.
Tonight's gonna be a good night, right? That current hit song.
Tonight's the night. All right, third pick, Connor. Back to you.
Well, if we are talking about moods, then I want to, in the same way that Greg wants to bottle the feeling of turning the corner into Vegas, I want to bottle the joy of Big Bad Voodoo Daddy playing at the Derby and everyone dancing.
Nice.
I think
Especially
at this
when
point you could hire them
guy
as your
goes
house
across the
band for
screen.
your house.
Yeah.
But that's not the same feeling. That's much sadder.
Hey Rob, what happened to our band?
There's a reason why it was fun for a while. It was just there was a lot of spinning.
Yes.
And
So
a lot of just
everything's
joy.
spinning.
Right. It's my wife was saying we could go, dance lessons after, and I was like, yeah, we could. I mean, it just seems fun in a way that is unselfconscious. And
If it's theater kid energy. When you're
Yes.
surrounded by it,
Yeah.
if you're the one person into it, it sucks and you feel like the biggest dork in the world. But when you're surrounded by it, it's fucking fire.
my roommate in college did it. She went off and she took swing classes and then swing competitions. Like it was just fun.
I used to be able to swing a girl up and around my shoulders and head and like back down my back. And now I'm just like, oh, that would so much stretching. So many things to pull.
I told her we could take the classes, but and half of my joints would explode.
Yeah, I mean the other thing about it too, and it's what makes it so cinematic, is that most clubs, it's like you go out there and move whatever you want and it's fine, and that is it. Just all if you know how to do it, it's like everybody choreographed for hours, and it's just fantastic to watch. I can't imagine being in the middle of it, but it's rad.
Greg, your third pick.
Okay. Let's see. I got together with my wife so young, really, that I never got to have, and now I think in the modern era, you wouldn't even have this experience, but a napkin with a girl's number on it. I never got that. And, there's a certain, that's kind of romantic in a way. Like, she takes a pen and writes her name and her number on a napkin. I don't even think that would happen anymore. She'd be like, let me see your phone or something. I actually don't know.
I had a few years of that between college and cell phones where you did get phone numbers on pieces of paper or napkins, and it was pretty awesome.
Right? Yeah, because then you look at it and you're like, damn, I did a good job, man. That was,
is that a 7 or a 4?
Yeah.
Well, there's only 28 combinations. Let's try them all. It's great too because if you get murdered, the detective finds that napkin with the bar logo on it, and then he knows where to start his searching. Like that's how the case begins.
Now, Greg, so it is a cocktail napkin with a girl's number on it. You're not even saying which girl. You're just a girl's number.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be appropriate. I can say my wife's number on it, but but I'm just gonna say, you go out and you chat a girl up, and you're like, hey, I'd love to get your number, and she's like, okay, and she grabs a pen and she writes, and it's just it's nothing more serious than that, but just being like, hey, man, that went,
it's a
went
physical
well.
manifestation that someone finds you interesting,
right? Yeah,
and then you rip it up just like Trent.
Yeah,
no,
in front of her face.
No,
you frame it.
Yeah, honestly, I would frame it, and so then I'd go the other weird way with it.
Right.
Here's my shrine to you.
Much cooler. I don't know if it was clear. Ryan and Connor got points for Greg saying, I guess I'd want my wife's phone number.
Greg just drafted a magical napkin that has a phone number on it from an era that he just missed of everybody's life, and the number he picks is. I don't know if I've ever been more disappointed in anyone in my entire life.
He is a wife guy through and through, and we're not going to change him now. Ryan, for your penultimate pick.
I think that what I'm going to do is take. We already talked about Marty and Elaine. I hope that we get to them again because they need to be seen to be believed. But
Can you pause and explain?
Okay, so the Dresden they're still there, I believe.
No, Marty passed away 2 years ago.
Okay, so it's just Elaine and their Weekend at Bernie's styling Marty there at the drum set. Where if you're a Weekend at Bernie's and you have to play your own steel drums to stay moving, that's a rough life. But it's these two people who I think were born old and would play these.
And they got worse.
Yeah, I think my best comparison is Will Ferrell and is it Sherry O'Terry or Anna Gasteyer?
Yes.
As the people who do like I don't know, school assemblies and stuff. Yeah, and just of all these standards that no one's listened to in years. So I'm going to take their setup. I just want that if Marty is dead and Elaine's got to be close, then in my living room is going to be their drum set and keyboard with the sign, Marty and Elaine here every night. And then there's a Post-it note that says, "Are you serious?" And then the dress is yeah, every night.
She's another one who like the camera is on her and she looks right down the barrel and then clearly someone gives her like the looking right down the barrel sign and she just continues to stare down it.
Because she's playing the keyboard like one of us or a toddler, it feels like of a piece. It really makes sense right there. All right, Ryan, your last pick.
Oh boy. Greg kind of stole it.
What a bastard.
I know.
The chunky white phone.
I'm going to make sure that nothing.
His wife's phone number?
I've been working for that for years.
I scooped you. I scooped you, Ryan.
So nothing ever of mine gets stolen again. I'm going to take is it the Ninja? What was the little thing that everybody had on their steering wheels?
The club.
The club. Yes, I'm going to take the club and I'm going to put it on everything. Like, if you want some of my food, too bad. There's a club on the fridge.
Question, because I have a club. My car got stolen this year, so the minute I got a new car, I also got a new club. They have not changed in 30 years, but because you just drafted it, do I have to throw it out my window?
Yeah, no, that's gone for everyone.
Cool.
Did the cops tell you about the fatal flaw of the club?
No, fuck.
This happened in the 90s when we had a car stolen in New York, was that because we had a club on it, and he was like, yeah, all they got to do is cut through the steering wheel and slide the club off.
Yeah.
Ah. Shit.
But I'm sure it'll be fine.
I mean,
the TikTok kids don't have those.
Yeah, they don't
tools.
know that.
They just have a thumb drive.
Yeah.
Everything from car locks, like door locks, to the club to everything is just there for people who don't want to steal anything.
Yeah.
If you want to steal it, you'll just get it.
Greg, your last pick?
All right. I'm going to go with, of all the experiences these guys have, besides getting a girl's number and putting it on a napkin, that I find myself the most jealous of is video game night with the boys. When was the last time you just got together with the boys and made Gretzky's head bleed? Just
and drank Budweiser, apparently.
Yeah, exactly.
40s.
And just I don't like. We played some hockey that was the game for a while, or a fighting game or something, and just being rowdy and just playing video games.
I mean,
the boys.
GoldenEye is probably the biggest one of our lives, right?
Yeah. Or like Perfect Dark that came out like a few years later, but it was just
Yes.
GoldenEye 2, basically.
Or Madden. I also really relate to close to the end when Mikey he comes out of his coma and he goes over to Trent's or Sue's and fucking House of Pain is there. And I just remember, like, you didn't roster dive before you went over to your friend's house, and some secondary group of friends that you fucking hate is there too.
Yes.
And you got to deal with that for the whole night.
No one told me he'd be here.
Yeah. Like, oh, the dirtbag friends are here. Bummer.
Cool. That's the vibe of the night.
Greg, that's
I will
my
say
mother and father.
Point of order, Ryan has the last working Sega Genesis, so video game of the night with the boys cannot be on Sega. I'm just letting that,
Okay.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
I understand. It would be PlayStation 1 because it's probably going to be Tony Hawk 1 or 2. So.
Oh, man. I'm doing everything I can. Conor, your last pick.
All right, you said no people.
That's
However,
true.
I'm gonna make
You can't get Heather Graham.
No, I'm making a choice, and you guys can tell me if it's not allowed. I would like Vince Vaughn's physique.
Oh, that's allowed.
Yeah, that's fine.
There was at one point I had that physique. I'm 6'3". There was in college I weighed 190 pounds.
Hell yeah.
At one point I had that kind of physique where you're tall and thin, everything looks good on you.
Yeah.
That is long in the rearview mirror. I can't even see it anymore. It's over the hill.
It
And
it
like
is
it back.
weird because we have the phrase baby fat, and that's how you know somebody looks young. But all these beautiful babies are so skinny, and they do not have that baby fat. It's
Instead of
It
baby
all
fat,
sucks.
we now have money fat because we
Favreau-
already got fat.
Favreau went on a crash diet.
Yeah,
He lost 80 pounds.
He's
oh,
gross.
yeah.
Like he's not healthy sized in this.
Yeah.
Like I mean, that's like it. He looks like he's in a lot of pain in this movie. To be honest, like his
Because
physique
he had done Rudy, and he was really, really big in Rudy, and he'd lost 80 pounds after that.
Yeah.
Oh damn.
It was $3 million for the budget, $2 million for Coke. But I mean, also, do you guys remember though, like going to McDonald's and you would look the same afterwards, and the day after that
Yeah.
you would look the same? That's not the case anymore.
And feel the same.
No, insta bloat. All right. For your shopping spree, Connor, you took the party house, Trent's diamond tie, the feeling of seeing the big bad voodoo daddies at the Derby, and Vaughn's physique. Greg, you have a chunky phone, the feeling of seeing the Vegas lights, a napkin with a phone number on it, and video game nights with the boys. Ryan, you have Trent's car, a working Sega Genesis, the Marty and Elaine setup, and a car club, a thing you can certainly buy for $20 right now.
But I will
I
say the synergy going on here, because if I have Trent's car, so I have the club for it, and Greg has that phone number and a phone to call,
Yeah.
that
yes.
number on. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, Connor wins, clearly,
But-
if you're paying attention to anything at all.
Because
All right.
when you call her, then you gotta, that's round two. You gotta like get that chemistry going again and everything.
I think you leave about 13 to 50 voicemails in a 6-minute period.
Oh my
and you woo
god,
her.
my skin was fucking crawling. Like that is painful to watch.
We are going to take the quickest of breaks, and when we come back, more talking about swingers. Honey Money Babies, let's talk about the guys behind the guys. Two pretty important modern filmmakers, Doug Liman and Jon Favreau, collide here at the beginning of their careers. How do they do with tone, particularly comedically? The mostly grounded dialogue of the film is spiced up with talking answering machines and film parodies. Does all of this work together?
The answering machine's weird.
Yeah.
It stands out as weird.
The answering
doesn't fit
machine
the
made me
movie.
think right away that, like, because this is like 10 minutes into the movie. This is post Vegas,
Yeah.
I think, and or maybe it's towards the middle.
No,
one.
it's the second. It's the second scene after he has.
Oh, that's right. I'm thinking of not the one where he's calling Brooke Langton.
No,
but the
I'm
one
talking
where
about the talking answering machine.
the talking answering machine. Once we
The
get to
answering
that,
machine with like platitudes, like, "Hey, buddy, you're doing okay."
that talking answering machine thing made me think. I think it's gonna sound damning, with less than faint praise, but this is if it started to make me feel that if Kevin Smith got a hold of a Woody Allen script. Because a lot of Woody Allen movies will have the comedy sort of come from anywhere, and that ended towards the end of his career. But like, it can be very broad and very narrow, all within minutes of each other.
Right.
I honestly thought that the answering machine was a better gag than the everyone steals from everyone.
Right.
Talking about Reservoir Dogs and then coming out to that. Maybe it's because I've seen that fucking slow motion walk 1 million times since then, but. We're clearly dealing with people who are like, I don't know, man, throw your idea in. We'll just put it in the movie.
Well, the answering machine was supposed to be a running gag that they ended up cutting out of the movie after the first time. So it was supposed to appear throughout the film, which would have made it, I think, a totally different film.
Almost like an
Totally
LA
different-
Story style gag, where like in the Steve Martin movie LA Story, there's like a traffic sign that like gives him advice, and he keeps driving out to it. That feels like the same sort of gag where something innocuous gives you advice. It's weird to leave it in there for one time ever, and then
Yes.
just move on.
To be super surreal up top,
Right.
and then
You can cut
'Cause then-
that part. You can leave in all the answering messages.
yeah.
Cut the talking very easily. It's very strange they kept it in.
It was almost like they
the
were a
other
little.
thing, the reservoir that's like a meta joke, not an in-universe joke. So
Right.
that feels like a different thing.
So you're claiming that they didn't know that they were walking in slow motion, but Mikey did know that he was talking to an answer machine?
No, the opposite. No, I'm saying one is like a silly, like Greg said, LA Story or like Naked Gun style joke, and the other one is like a filmmaker's joke, and so they have different vibes to me.
I definitely think that LA Story should be put on the list of movies that were watched and admired before this movie was made because of how much of it does seem like maybe the first, pass in the writer's room or whatever is, all right, let's list all of the LA cliches we want to talk about, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
we'll just pepper them in throughout. And LA Story has very broad jokes, but is grounded for like 80% of the time.
It doesn't derail the film, but it because it goes away and it's so early on, you almost forget about it. But it gives you a different feeling in the beginning.
Ultimately, like, they were going to get this movie done, and I think any scene that they thought added anything was in any way additive, and I think that they think there's a joke there that really does land, and that made it worthwhile.
Great.
And it does do a good job at setting up, because Mikey's alone in the beginning, setting up like where he's at. We see Ron telling him the whole, yeah, we've heard it, I'm here for you, buddy. And then this, like, what is he like when he's alone? And it's even more pathetic.
Mike and Conor, you guys seem to have like a firm hand on the backstory. Do we have any idea how much was left on the cutting room floor? Like, was this one of those 200-page scripts of just jokes that had to get cut because it didn't forward the plot or character development?
I don't know exactly. I mean, Mike might know better because I think you sound like you read the oral history recently, but things are definitely cut. I don't know how much. I mean, it's a pretty tight film. It's one.
It's like 96.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote 10 pages a day for 10 days, I think he said. And then went, there's my movie. So I don't know how much editing, but I know that was the first pass. To the point, and fuck Jon Favreau, and clearly he's right, because look at his career. He was like, I don't get why people say it's agonizing. You just 10 pages a day. It's super fun. I was just trying to make myself laugh.
I do have to say,
fuck you.
Part of the mastery of this movie really like is that it does seem like, oh yeah, what's hard about doing this? Like there does seem like a sort of like insouciance or like just go out there and shoot this movie with your friends. Like why wouldn't it be good? You guys are funny together, right? And honestly, I swear to you, America, that's the hardest fucking thing in the entire world.
I've got a box full of films from college that show you that it's not that easy.
Exactly.
And my friends were funny.
Yeah.
I mean, even without scripts, like there's a world of podcasts where people are like, no, this is super easy. Like just go on and tell the same stories with your friends. It's really hard. But it makes certain scenes stand out to me in different ways than when I watched it originally. If like jump into the Liman of it all real quick. The scene where Vince Vaughn is not peeing on the side of the road, but just shaking his penis post-pee for like 45 seconds. There is this thing about it that you can tell it's so guerrilla. Like there's no...
Right.
They almost got arrested for that scene.
Yeah, you can tell that like there's no police on either side saying we should let only a certain amount of cars through. Like they are screaming through that scene to get it done. And that is just not something that we really get anymore. As Conor was saying in the beginning of the show, like this kind of filmmaker is like, we will make very serious horror, let's say, hoping for our Marvel contract soon, And this whole Hangout movie, this whole like this brand of movie that like, let's say Linklater invented, we don't get any of them anymore.
Certainly not
There's
from
not a
young people. Linklater still makes them, but that's about it.
He's holding on strong.
Well, speaking of directing, I don't know if you guys know. Certainly at the time, there was until Liman's career took off, probably with The Bourne Identity, which was 6 years later. There was rumblings that Favreau had secretly directed the film. Mm-hmm. At the time, there was like Favreau was the real director. Liman was just shooting it because Liman also shot it physically with the camera, and that Favreau was the actual director. But clearly, that was not the case. I mean, they're both good directors, and they both have great careers as directors. But I remember distinctly at the time the rumor going around, whatever rumors went around at the time, was that Liman wasn't the actual director.
I mean, it's funny because I listened to a podcast that is hosted by John August, who is the writer of Liman's second movie, Go. And there was some of those rumors as well. I don't know if Liman is, Liman might be closer to, as a director, Mick G or something even more insulting than that. But
Is it because they're both OC connected, Ryan?
yeah, I mean, we do have to talk about how much Doug Liman, unbeknownst to me, shaped my fucking young adulthood with Swingers Go and the OC. Jesus Christ. But his ability to, even if it's just like game day manage, even if it's able to get out there and just make all the way up to like making, not just creating the Bourne trilogy that Greengrass took over and probably to this point receives more credit for than Liman does, but all the way up into making Edge of Tomorrow, just like this hidden
great film.
Like this secret classic that now we just assumed that movie made $500 million in the theater because of how great it was. And just
also setting music to film, he's so good.
He's the master, yeah.
I mean, he really does bring out the energy and like the synergy between music and visuals.
Let me correct myself. I said he's the master. He is clearly not. But if you're going to steal from Scorsese and Tarantino in that aspect, that is something that happens more later in his career instead of this movie where he bald-faced literally does it for both of them.
Oh, and that's the other thing. Sorry, that's the other thing with this movie is that, again, I guess me being the oldest guy here and being in college at the time and studying film at the time, we were all doing Tarantino. I mean, Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs had come out.
Conor.
And I cannot tell you how many times when we would screen something, it was some Pulp Fiction ripoff. And to the point where our film professor was like, I don't want to see any more Tarantino movies.
Please.
No suits.
No
That's
suits.
like Taryn suits.
Even these guys are doing, because that was the zeitgeist. It was like everyone was so inspired by that and trying to do that.
No
So it
more
makes
suits,
sense
no
that
more bare
they
feet.
Reference it because that was what everyone was referencing at the time.
Can
And
I ask a
I
weird
think-
question? When it goes to slow-mo in this movie, was it very juddery?
Yeah,
Yes.
it was.
Yeah.
Why did he do it that way?
I think it was like, let's take it home
camera.
and do it on whatever shitty editing machine we have, or maybe it was in camera, and then that's not how you're supposed. I don't know, but
I mean, the scene with Lorraine again. I keep going back to Lorraine, but I swear there's reasons. Mikey's out of focus for the close-up. He's out of focus, but they have to use it, and so like that almost makes it more endearing to me.
Yeah, it's
It is
raw.
like just these guys making this film guerrilla style with a shitty camera, and the narrow shots out of focus. Oh well,
It was filmed in such batshit ways that the first half of the shoot, I had to look. It's called shorts, so they were actually unused film from other films, literal film. So there was so they could film 60 seconds at a time, and they were like, after a few days, they're like, well, this is untenable.
it's like the original
so
Vine.
they got an old school camera, the kind of like whirs that you. So it's Liman is wrapped up in his comforter and some like asbestos fucking insulation and walking around to muffle that so the camera doesn't pick up its own noise. So he's literally looks like an unhoused person walking around with a video camera out of a comforter, walking around like Vegas and stuff with it. So yeah, that's why stuff is the way it is sometimes.
And I totally agree with Conor. Like, I see out of focus shots in big budget Hollywood productions, and that is crazy. But the idea that they were like, this is our only shot, and to do reshoots, that wasn't even a word that they would ever even consider.
they can't go back to one here. They're shooting in the Dresden wall or the Derby wall. It's being used.
Yeah, like there's just this is the shot, and we hope that people are okay with it.
Are there any hints in this movie that Favreau and Liman are headed for big budget Hollywood action films?
I don't think so, but I could.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Maybe how quippy, how much it relies on banter.
I like that.
I think that watching it in my, later and less formidable years, it just seemed like such a hangout movie before, and to watch it now, the structure is so clear. It seems so awesome because it's barely even a movie, man. You're just friends with these people. But now I think that Favreau has this like bit of a sort of Pixar thing of like movies work in a certain way. And, it might be, the story might go this way, or it might go this way, or it might have special effects, or it might not. But my structure is going to be classic and clean.
Yeah.
And I'll do other stuff around it. And I think that's like that's why he's able to just start the Marvel universe and then become the most important part at that time of the Star Wars universe, is because I'm just going back to basics. And Swingers ultimately is that, if you think about it.
And I know we're going to talk about him later, but Liman's whole handheld thing, which he uses very well later on in films like The Bourne Identity, is really on display here, where he really puts you in the action, and you're not watching it removed when the action starts. In this case, it's usually dancing or something else to that extent. You're in there
Yeah.
You're handheld, and it feels very vital and extreme.
But it's funny because we were talking about Greengrass taking over the Bourne trilogy, and his whole thing is shaky cam, I'm going to put you in the action. I think Liman is a step back from that, often in a better way of like, we feel like we're in there, but it's not to a distracting degree.
Yeah.
Right. Throw up.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
We're not bouncing off people in the shots, but it's like you feel it without like totally noticing it most of the time, I think.
Yeah.
Just
And
organic.
yeah, we're like a documentary feel where you're like there, or like why The Office or early Arrested Development works so well. An adorable Doug Liman anecdote. He moves to Paris to make the first Bourne movie, and people didn't want him to make it. Like they're like, this is a stupid idea, and it's like they're about to start filming, and he's like, what the fuck am I doing? Why I'm in Paris? I don't know anybody. Why did I do this? I don't do these kinds of movies. And he's just flipping through Parisian cable, and up comes Swingers. And he goes, I can fucking do this shit. Wow. He inspired himself, which is both so cocky and so endearing at the same time.
Yeah, if you know anything about
director at that moment.
If you know anything about Doug Liman, that is the least surprising story of all time.
It's kind of beautiful, though.
All right, we're going to take the quickest of breaks. And when we come back, talk about the third head of the Hydra that we have not yet talked about, Vince Vaughn. Let's dive in to the man, the myth, the legend that is Vince Vaughn, who some would argue maybe this movie would not be remembered as well without him. The man that launched 1,000 motor-mouthed idiots who think they're funny. But because we don't want to just say, like, Vince Vaughn, let's talk about his career, we're doing a bracket, folks. Let's find out what is the ultimate Vince Vaughn role and why. Starting with, of course, thank you to Letterboxd, your number 1 seed, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and your number 16 seed, Gus Van Sant Psycho? Or is it Lars Van Trier? One of those three.
Gus Van Sant.
Gus Van Sant. I was right the first time. Gus Van Sant Psycho.
I mean, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, he was like, at this point, I think he was Trent for hire. You know, like if you need Trent to come in because your script is weird or because your two lead actors are making weird eyes at each other and about to fuck their life up. Then
Surprise number 1 seed, right?
Yeah, I think just because it's a supporting role. It was a big movie, and I do feel like the stock is going up on it. Like, I think people are, maybe it's because of the TV show, the far superior TV show.
Far superior.
But him getting cast as Norman Bates, I don't know, man. He's not the bad part of the movie.
What's awesome about, like, at the time, everyone was like, what? That's stupid. And it's been so long since I've seen it, I cannot stand behind it. But he has since done similar roles where he's like, no, I can be a dark killer. And I think he does crush. He's a massive Frankenstein monster of a man. So when he leans into that, like, yeah, that is scary.
Thank you so much for saying monster, because we would have been like, he's a massive Dr. Frankenstein.
I know.
Like, what is he talking about?
All right. If nobody has anything else to say about Mr. and or Mrs. Smith and or Psycho, it's voting time. Greg?
I honestly don't even remember him from Mr. and Mrs. Smith, so I do remember him as Norman Bates. So I'm going to go Psycho.
Nice. Connor?
I have to go Psycho for the same exact reasons. When you said Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I was like, he was in that? Because I haven't seen that in so long, but Psycho, yeah.
He does have a lot of very funny quips, throwing weapons towards, like, Brad Pitt while Brad Pitt does cool things.
It sounds delightful.
And Ryan, not that it matters, but what's your vote?
I think Psycho. I mean, if Brad Pitt was instead Owen Wilson in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, then maybe.
Wow.
All right, up next is your number 8 seed, Brawl and Selbach 99, which came out a couple years ago, versus your number 9 seed, Old School, which is older Trent.
Oh.
Brawl and Cell Block 99 is basically Vincent D'Onofrio from Kingpin. He's basically Wilson Fisk just crushing heads.
That's awesome. Worth a watch?
Which isn't not really... It's a fucking gnarly movie. It is 3 hours. And then what was the other one? Old School.
Old School.
Yeah.
Old School.
Old School.
3 for Old School, I'm assuming?
I feel like that's the first movie, or one of the first movies you think of with him.
It might be the closest we get to Trent growing up, where he just has money, and then now his ideas have like financial backup to put his friends through shit.
There is a string, and we're getting into it, and I guess it just is the guy's career, where he is, as you said, Ryan, Trent for hire. But sometimes he is Trent for heart. Like, he really wants to be Trent, and I think old school is that. And here's a couple of other versions of Trent. It's Dodgeball versus Four Christmases. Y'all remember Four Christmases?
I know. I do not at all.
Him and Reese Witherspoon are together. It's adorable because she's very tiny. And both their parents are split up. And instead of just letting down half of them, or they decide we're going to see all four parents this Christmas weekend.
Oh, wow.
Watch it on a plane.
Does this add tension to their relationship at all, though?
There's probably an argument.
Like romantic tension. There's a lot of fast talking back and forth, for sure.
The only scene I remember stars at that point, fucking ripped as shit, Jon Favreau.
Yeah.
And they bring
right. He's like the asshole brother or something.
Yeah, he's like wearing camo and stuff, and him and his wife play like Taboo or some board game, and they just fucking rock at it, because that's how you know true love.
And is he ripped as shit because he was just training for MMA from Friends? It's Dodgeball.
Probably, yeah.
But Dodgeball, right?
Yeah.
I feel like when Dodgeball came out, we were like, this is going to be a movie that people remember in the future. But like, do you think anybody from like 5 years after Dodgeball came out?
I still hear random, and I thought this kind of guy was dead, but I still hear people say, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. In most
right. If you're going to throw a wrench,
apropos.
That's like the go-to line before you chuck a wrench is.
For sure.
Yeah.
God, when that Olympic event was happening, everyone had to say it every time they threw.
The wrench chuck?
I think the one that I hear the most is "You made me bleed my own blood," but that's a Ben Stiller line.
I think if Vince Vaughn is just doing another Trent, Ben Stiller in that movie is just doing another camp counselor from Heavyweights.
Yes, another movie we've all seen and loved. Thanks, Mike.
Fuck you, that movie rules.
I think he's a great straight man because you have a straight man that will also have his own brand of joke. So Dodgeball for me.
Dodgeball.
Seinfeld told me that wasn't allowed.
Yeah. Break the rules.
Next up is a movie near and dear to my heart and is very new in the Vaughn canon, Freaky, where it is the horror Freaky Friday, where he switches bodies with a timid, I want to say her name is Catherine Newman, who was in the Ant-Man Quantumania. And he's a serial killer. And now Vince Vaughn gets to act like a 16-year-old girl. And the 16-year-old girl gets to act like a ruthless serial killer. And it's going up against The Breakup, another version of Trent.
Yeah.
With him and Jennifer Aniston.
I like The Breakup.
Underrated.
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in that movie. Honestly, it's about how you got to work on yourself if you want to be able to like have a relationship. And I think that like that's a message that a lot of, especially young men could use. Like you gotta like doing the dishes because you gotta like having a clean kitchen before you can be the kind of person that's in a relationship. And that's what Vince Vaughn learns in that movie.
Are there any lessons about cleaning your sheets in that movie? Because it took me a long time to learn that one.
I think it's applicable like to any sort of chore, honestly.
The best thing about sheets is just don't do it. Those shits are permanent. They're on there forever.
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, I say don't do it. Just sleep on a mattress. And you know what? Fuck that mattress. You're sleeping on a nest in the middle of your floor.
Dude, I was such a disgusting 22-year-old that I would just sleep on the raw mattress all the time.
You nasty bitch.
Heroin needle coming out of your arm.
I think I've got to vote for Freaky only. I don't discount anything Greg said about the very heartfelt things he just said about the breakup, but I thought he did really well portraying a girl trapped in a man's body in that film. I thought he was very entertaining as well as being scary.
Which is, so easy to be hacky with that.
Yes. And I don't think he is. I'm all for, they don't all hit the same, but I do think Freaky's probably top of the list of Blumhouse is like, oh, should we just take old comedies but make them horror movies now? All right, we got one for Freaky. Ryan, what do you got?
I'm going to go The Breakup.
The Breakup. And Greg, was that a vote for The Breakup?
I'm a breakup boy, yeah.
Oh my goodness. That is not what I expected.
You know what? what I expected was the unexpected.
You can never be wrong, unless the expected happens.
Now, this next one is the third in the Favreau Vaughn bro-out trio. It's Couples Retreat up against, and I understand, very, very, very small role, but his small role is still quoted so often. It's Anchorman.
Oh,
Yeah, dude.
oh.
I white hot hate you. But goddamn,
Couples
do I
Retreat
respect
underrated.
you.
Couples Retreat's underrated as a comedy, but Anchorman is an all-time from that era.
I think if you think
Dorothy
of Vince
Mantooth
Vaughn,
is a
this,
saint.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think this is really, honestly, forgive me, Letterboxd fans, but I think this is really the number one seed. This is the number one thing people think of when they think of Vince Vaughn, even though it is a short part in the movie.
And it's so unexpected. I remember the time in the theater when he pops up. It was
Yeah.
place went berserk.
Yeah, it's the best stretch of the movie.
I'm not going to go to the fucking mattresses for my dirty sheet cover mattresses for Couples Retreat. So, yeah. I think Anchorman can coast here.
Anchorman can go. All right, next up, I think his most forgettable version of Trent in The Internship, your number 7th seed, which feels insanely high,
Yeah,
versus your number 10th seed, and I'm going to be honest, was producer Mike's thumb a little on the scale here because he loves this movie and people should talk about it more? Yes. 2000, The Cell.
Oh.
So wait, The Internship was really number 7?
Yeah. I
Okay.
don't get Letterboxd.
People were drunk. A lot of people were drunk because that's crazy.
Not to be confused with The Intern.
No,
which
I
is,
know. This is the one they went to work at Google, wasn't it? Him and
Yeah, they work
Matthew-
at Google,
yeah.
where the intern is Robert De Niro is even older and tries to be an intern somewhere.
In this movie, he's even older.
you remember that earlier movie? That guy was hardly old. Look how old this dude is.
I mean, are you declaring shenanigans, Mike? Do you think Google is going in and changing Letterboxd to
I
make
think
the internship?
I would not be surprised if Google owns Letterboxd. And
Wasn't it
yeah.
Amazon?
I don't know.
Somebody does.
Mike,
I try
what
not
is
to
this?
find out.
Remind us what The Cell
The
is.
Cell is a psychosexual thriller starring Jennifer Lopez, where there is technology
Yeah.
where you can go inside somebody's head, but just like Inception would teach us, if you die in the head, you die in real life. And so it's super fucked up. Greg, I don't even know if you like reading the Wikipedia. For this.
No, dude,
There's some gruesome.
I've seen this movie and it fucked me up.
And he is just a straight man here. He's just like not even like a straight comedy guy. He is like Jennifer Lopez's number 2, who once she gets locked in the serial killer's head, he is like, well, I got to go save her. Folks, he does not.
No.
I'd pay so much money to be Jennifer Lopez's number 2. Mike, who plays the serial killer?
Oh,
I can tell you real quick.
tell me real quick.
Vincent D'Onofrio, who would go on to play Wilson
Yes!
Fisk in Daredevil.
Whoa. He's all over this episode.
The Vincents are friends. So which under-remembered Vince Vaughn vehicle are we going with here, boys?
I'm a
I think
Cell
that-
baby.
Yeah, it's got to be The Cell,
Yes.
because the intern or the internship, I don't know which one it is and don't care, should lose.
Also, full
Yes.
disclosure, I am completely made up of cells. So
What?
that had no
One of
bearing
those.
on my decision, but I just
Just to clear things up, Amazon does not own Letterboxd. It's some Canadian holding company.
Good.
I have not seen The Cell, so I have to vote for the internship. But I don't really
right.
care. So I'm happy to have The Cell win.
All right, the Cell moves on. Next up, again, I don't get Letterboxd. Your number 3 seed for Vince Vaughn is Jurassic Park, The Lost
Oh,
World.
come on.
Versus your number 14 seed, again, I do not understand Letterboxd, Wedding Crashers.
What?
Okay.
wow.
I feel like producer Mike should maybe have had more of thumbs on the.
Yeah.
Nope, I did my work with bringing the Cell in, and then I went, job done.
Did
Wedding
you
Crashers
just
is-
gently placed it on the scale? You gotta kind of like
You caressed it lovingly.
lean on it.
I mean, it's Wedding Crashers.
Wedding
right?
Crashers
Yeah.
by a billion. That's a
The
slimy
defining
D.
comedy of that era.
The
Probably
seeds are
his best
meaningless.
version of Trent. Nobody want to speak up for his role as the bad guy in The Lost World?
No.
Was he the bad guy?
So,
No.
yeah, wasn't he the bad
I thought he
dinosaur?
was the photographer.
I heard
Oh, my
I thought
I heard
dinosaurs were
that-
the bad guy.
so long.
he got the part for this when they went to go ask Steven Spielberg if they could use the Jaws music.
Yes.
And he was like, you know what? You got moxie. and I think you ought to be in my new picture. And he's like,
Is that true?
Yes, he had to
That's
screen the
awesome.
film to prove the use of the Jaws theme, and he said, "Oh, that guy's a star."
maybe he's got star power.
Was Spielberg at that time wearing those director's pants that like poof out on the side?
Yeah, he had the big
Rumpers?
microphone.
Yes.
Yeah, the whole deal.
All right. Next up, The Watch versus Swingers.
I'm gonna say Swingers.
Swingers.
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
Swingers.
Swingers is probably the one.
All right. That is your round one. Round two, Psycho versus Old School.
Old school.
Old school.
Kicking it old school.
Good job, Psycho.
I will say, doing this, there's so many movies I want to go rewatch that I haven't watched in so long.
Like Psycho.
Like Psycho? Is that one of
Like
them?
Psycho.
Fucking weirdo.
Dodgeball versus The Breakup.
Oh, I'm Breakup for sure.
No, man.
Wow.
Dodgeball.
Yeah. If you can dodge a breakup, you can dodge a wrench. It's dodgeball.
Anchorman versus The Cell.
Anchorman.
Anchorman.
Yeah, Cell, you're just lucky to get here. Wedding Crash. This one, okay, our first hard one, I think. Wedding Crashes versus Swingers.
Oh,
This is most iconic role, right?
Yeah.
For me, it's Swingers.
Oh, man.
it's so rare. I mean, look, his character is who he is, but just from a stepping back and looking at a performance, like it's so rare to see someone totally unknown show up like that and just shine like an incandescent light on the screen. Like he owns it. You can see why he became a star for that. So I have to go Swingers, even though I'm not happy about it.
I'd probably quote more Trent from Wedding Singers or Wedding Crashers lines than Trent from Swingers lines. But yeah, probably Swingers. I'm a phenomenal
All right.
dancer.
Thank you. I was just going to ask. What lines do you like to quote?
But no, let's go shoot birds. I'm stoked.
It's a great movie.
It's probably what I'm going to watch when we're done recording. And then, Gus Van Sant Psycho. Round three, Old School versus Dodgeball.
Old school.
Yeah.
Old school.
Jeez.
Jeez, yes.
How many hours of my life have been spent watching Vince Vaughn movies?
Too many and not enough at the same time. And next up is Anchorman versus Swingers.
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 Yeah.
I guess Dorothy Mantooth is not a saint.
I think he was just so money in Swingers.
Yeah. Barely
But
even a
he knew
baby.
it.
in
He knew it
man.
though. Yeah.
He's a beautiful baby who's so money. Okay, this I can see this being obviously had to come down to these two. Your final battle is Old School versus Swingers.
I mean,
Swingers.
is it cheesy just to like do the reason for the season?
No,
Like
it's the reason for the season, man. This is him, just like Conor said. It's him bursting on the scene and like like the freshness of getting the first look
There-
at our boy.
there's nobody who watches this movie in theaters, right? Going to independent cinema. And if you're doing that, you're talking about it all the time, how often you go to independent cinema. And seeing this and not guaranteeing his name will be above the
Yeah.
title very, very soon.
Buying all the stock.
Yeah. I agree. Swingers. I mean, number two I would be Wedding Crashers anyway.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was Old School.
And then
That's how brackets work.
number 3 is obviously True Detective Season 2, the season that
Right.
everybody loves.
Everybody's favorite season of that show.
All
It's
right.
not as bad as people say.
Swingers is the quintessential Vince Vaughn role. And that's the only one we're allowed to watch from here on out, so I guess the rest of my night's plans are dashed. We are going to take the quickest breaks, and when we come back, let's talk about Swingers. Sweet, beautiful Honey Money Babies, is there a weird dearth of swing in Swingers? Like, the guys are clearly all in on the fashion, but it's actually not referenced much in the movie. They spend way more time talking about video game hockey than they do anything swing-related. Why base it in this subculture if you're not going to explore it?
The cynical version of me, it sort of feels like swing started to become big, and then they threw it in there at the end.
And that they don't really actually themselves like it in the same way they like everything else in the movie.
I was going to ask you guys a question earlier, but I forgot. Is swing popular in 96 because of The Mask in 94? That it can't be because of The Mask, can it?
I think separate threads were going on.
Yeah.
Can't say this happened.
Yeah.
The Mask
Is
definitely
part of it,
happened.
though.
Yeah.
Because specifically, it's like him doing the song and dance number. So like that was a big thing.
But then all the daddy bands were growing.
Uh
Your Big Bad Voodoos, your Cherry Poppins.
huh.
That's awkward, uncomfortable.
But yeah, they like you would expect. It's called swingers. They are going from like bar to bar. They engage with the culture in terms of like that's where they hang out and stuff. But never one time do they have a conversation that's anything about like swing. They don't seem to care about it, or the movie doesn't seem to care about it as like a concept or a way of life or what it means. It's just like, and maybe that is the meaning that like they just are. It's just the scene that they're a part of, and it's not a deeper attachment to anything.
Well, I'll push back slightly, but first I'm going to a warning to anyone who's going to do a show like this is don't Google swingers bar locations.
Yep. Yeah.
Because I was looking for a name of one of this, and I thought I'd find like a list of all the locations. No, I got a bunch of swinger bars.
Yeah, the FBI has that now, man.
And so now my wife's like, why are you looking up swinger bars?
We're getting really weird ads.
Connor's wife.
I think they live the ethos, right? Like Trent he doesn't talk like there's we'll talk later about slang. Like all their slang is from the 40s.
Yeah.
Right? They're constantly going to these bars that are celebrating Sinatra or the Big Bad Voodoo guys playing. Like they're not educating us on it, but they're living it so fully. And he calls a gun a gat at one point. Like they're so fully in it, they just live it, and they're characters from another time, and so
it's like water for them. They're like fish in water.
It does embody it just in a different way. It's not educating us about it.
And as time capsule as this movie is, I think that the most time capsule movie from the year before, I think the 1 or 2 years before, is Clueless, that just has a swingers character in it. Like Christian is straight out of this movie, so there was like this thing that just continued.
It just
this sort of stuff. Yeah, like we all knew way more about previous generations or eras or decades than I think happens now.
I do love that they are all by the end is like the swingingest, right?
Yeah.
Big Bad Voodoo Daddy. Heather Graham looks like the only woman who's full out swingerfied.
Yeah.
That hair, man, that hair. Like,
yeah,
I didn't think it was something I was into. But.
Hair eyes. When Mikey starts swing dancing with her, all his friends look shocked.
Right.
Even Mikey kind of looks shocked.
It breaks Trent as a person. Like in the universe of the movie, it kind of destroys Trent. He looks on and he can't comprehend what he's seeing, and he is like then reduced from that point forward.
He no longer runs the show.
Yeah,
because at that point, Mikey's doing everything Trent's telling him to do.
Yeah,
and when Mikey finally gets up from that table and leaves, and says, "This is annoying and boring. I'm out of here." He's no longer under their thrall, and he does what he wants. He goes and dance. Does he want to dance? No, but he can, and he does. And as my wife pointed out, that's how he gets the girl. You should all you idiots should go dance.
Yeah,
it's not being a good
point
dancer.
Really gets to Connor's wife.
No.
It's not being a good dancer. It's putting yourself out there. And I think that's the best part of the movie by far is the way longer than you would think it is section where the slow song becomes a fast song. Yep. And Mikey just keeps looking around, and Heather Graham's like, "Buddy, I'm here. I'm here. Like, can you note? Like, we got to do something." And then he finally does it, and that is, like Connor said, that's when Trent and Sue they all move to the and most importantly, Elizabeth or Michelle or the first girlfriend. That's when they all move to the back of Mikey's story, and now it is him and her only in the world.
And Michelle feels it across the country, out there in New York.
The next day, and Rob calls that out. Rob says in the very first scene, they somehow know when you're over it, and that's when they call. They'll never call until you're over it.
Because right before he agrees to dance with her, he does. Trent's whole Yoda-esque wisdom is let them talk and act like you're listening, but don't care what they're saying.
Right.
But he's having a real conversation with her at the bar before they go dancing. He's actually asking her questions about her life, and he's interested in her answers. He's when he leaves that table, he is no longer in that thrall, and he is. I'm going to go talk to this girl. I'm going to find out what she's all about. I'm going to get her story. We're going to bond, and that's how he's changed that moment. And then when he finally dances, that's when he's free, I think.
And I feel like the movie does a good job of showing. I think it's a good message for young men that like if a woman teases you, it can be a really good thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
You just have to endure it a little bit and get past it and not get hung up on it.
It's hot.
Yeah,
It's super hot. It means that rapport has happened, but just keep it on that level. Like, I think that's the thing is that when Trent is talking to Dina Martin, he's bidding at her. But when Heather Graham and Mikey are together, they are bidding together. You know, he says, "Oh, it's that red piece of shit over there," pointing to his car, and she's like, "Well, that seems to fit." And he's like, "Yeah, get the fuck out of here." Like, they're
why I oughta.
They've already got a vibe going.
yes, they have it now.
She's like the only one to ever kind of laugh at one of his jokes. She doesn't laugh very hard.
They're not good jokes.
She goes like, yeah. Every time he says I'm a comedian, you can tell the other characters are like, is this a joke? Because he's so aggressively unfunny that obviously he's not a comedian.
Those are long nights at the Ha Ha Hut.
Yeah, dude, the ha ha hole. Oof.
Oh, the hole. That's right.
Yeah, man.
Every time
he starts
a set, he's like, "Airplane food. Wait a second. Can I talk to you guys about Michelle real quick?"
What's the deal with Michelle? Is she gonna call?
This movie is about a bunch of losers who sit around talking about movies. Why would anyone care to hear that?
Whoa!
Ouch.
Whoa! I think probably there's some people that would be interested in that perspective.
All right, baby. How bummed is Patrick Van Horn, who played Sue, that his career did not follow the same trajectory of Favreau, Vaughn, and Livingston?
Probably pretty sad.
Pretty bummed.
I don't really know how to answer this question, but like, he might be like selling real estate in Phoenix right now and making a good living.
He hasn't acted since 2008.
The guy who plays Charlie, Alex Dessert. I don't know if I'm saying his last name right. He's like, yeah, I'll just be like walking around and run into Patrick. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's just like walking. He's like, cool, man. Me too. So that guy is just off the grid.
Okay, so now I figured out why he doesn't have it. Does anybody know what Alex Dessert's current claim to fame is? What his job is now?
What is it?
He took over Carl when The Simpsons decided to stop having all their people of color be played by white people.
Wow, very good.
So Carl at Moe's every night says this place is dead anyway.
Well, that's why Carl suddenly got way cooler. He was Nick Fury in Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the Avengers cartoon, and Wolverine and the X-Men.
Oh, he does a lot of voice work. Yeah.
Nice.
Patrick Van Horn, maybe call some voice acting talent or agents and get on that.
Just get in that. No, call voice acting talent. Say, how do you do what you do?
Patrick Van Horn's last film was Four Christmases.
Whoa!
Wow!
Damn.
Family.
So he's like that one friend of Adam Sandler's who isn't in the movies anymore, and he's just always drunk in bars screaming.
But he's good in Swingers.
Yeah,
no, for sure.
No.
And I love his hair.
Good. Yeah.
We have all had a Vince Vaughn in our life at one time or another, and of course here I refer to Ryan. What can this movie teach us about dealing with these troubled figures?
I'll sit this one out, I guess.
I would say we've all been at like Ryan making a scene, and in fact at one point Ryan he really did the grows up thing, and we got kicked out of a bar after.
Is that true?
Ryan did it. Ryan,
and
can
how
you
did you
confirm
deal with that, Greg?
I was poopy pants about it for sure. I guarantee I was over the top cranky about that one.
Here's the strategy. Here's what I was thinking. Swingers pays homage to multiple movies. In that moment, I was paying homage to the movie Swingers, which pays homage to other movies.
Right.
And I was like, one day I'm gonna get a point for this. I don't even know what that means.
Man, the bouncer was so angry. So angry.
Just didn't get the reference.
I don't know, because it was very accurate. Like, I mean, he really did. He sold out. He committed to it. You know, the way they say, like, you should like ask for forgiveness, don't ask for permission. In this case, that was not. That wasn't the same.
In case it's clear Conor went on the Swingers bar crawl at some point around LA. In case Moody fans want to do the pop filter bar crawl, what bar in Orange County did Ryan do? We're all grown ups.
Michael's on Golden West.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
Check it out, folks.
Yep.
Believe it or not, no
Michael's.
recollection.
Was Wayne Gretzky really that big of a bitch?
Okay, Wayne Gretzky was a finesse player.
Oh, dude. When fucking Sue says the Kings are a finesse team.
Yeah. But he was nobody was if anybody checked Wayne Gretzky, they would send Marty McSorley over to basically try to end that guy's life. And then Gretzky himself would never check anybody, but he was a sniper, and he's probably the greatest hockey player of all time. And I can't believe how much hate he got in this movie.
I'm going to go with Vince Vaughn being the best hockey player of all time. But the only thing I remember...
Veronica Vaughn being the greatest hockey player of all time.
Such a hottie.
The only thing I remember about hockey at that time, but never been a huge hockey fan, was that the Kings always had to make sure to have one or two people who were on the ice and also affiliated with the mob that would just go and attack people that touched Wayne Gretzky.
Literally, Marty McSorley, his job was to go and just stomp on anybody who got close to Wayne Gretzky, and then they would be like, Marty, don't forget you have to bring your hockey stick, and he'd be like, oh yeah, and he would just kind of drag it behind him.
If you ask ChatGPT right now, ChatGPT, I need the hackiest name for a thuggy guy, it would say Marty McSorley immediately.
What is his finishing move? Give you one guess. Sorry, somebody's headed outside.
Uppercut?
It's an uppercut. Has any movie captured the feeling of getting to Vegas in one night more effectively than this?
No, dude, it's
no
fucking perfect.
Or just the crash, right? When they go from the high roller table to the low stakes table. That's a great smash cut to how everyone ends their Vegas trip.
And to build on that, you get to Vegas and all you want is to feel like somebody. And no matter how much money you plan to spend, you will always hit this ceiling where somebody in Vegas just looks down on you so hardcore. The way that dealer stunts on them so ridiculously. And it's we're just trying to have a fun time. And he cuts them down to size because he knows they don't belong.
That dealer can't lift up his chin because his glare for them is so fucking hardcore and burning them.
He knows they don't belong there.
How important is it that Mikey's a stand-up, or is it just any creative pursuit would be the same here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the stand-up thing adds to the jokes where when he says he's a stand-up, people laugh because of how unfunny he is. That's a good gag.
And even that is so true in a way because, you would think that stand-ups, they would just only draw funny people. But man, you go watch stand-up comedy any night of the week, and you will find that it's not just funny people who feel like doing that. It's just a personality type.
Plus, he's alone up there. It's he's also an actor. I mean, yeah, I think what you guys said, it's about him being funny in a moment, and he's just not. And that you couldn't. If he's a writer, it doesn't make a difference. If he's an actor, it doesn't make a difference.
Not that everybody has to be funny all the time.
No.
But Mikey, be funny once.
Yeah, just one time would be good.
I don't know why that one hurt for some reason.
I mean, Heather Graham is supposed to be the dream girl, and the way we know is at one of his jokes, she goes, huh. And it's oh, she loves him.
Well, she also recognized the logo. That was a big
one. His Groucho Marx duck. Fucking dorks. Does this movie have way more in common with Scream than you remembered? Greg, explain this.
There is something about the intensity of the male affection for one another and the whole idea of kind of being on the hunt and trying to rack up prizes. The interiority of that male experience, how intensely bonded they are to each other, reminds me of the killers from Scream, and then the big chunky white phone, right? There was a lot of that, a lot of good phone work.
Just the 90s.
Also, I mean, I think that this is important too. And Conor, I've heard you guys talk about this on iFanboy. There were so many important things about Clerks, but we truly hadn't heard a conversation about the employees of the Death Star like that on film. And I don't know if we would have the way that Scream and Swingers specifically are without that, we were in a whole new era, and that is something that Swingers and Scream have in common.
Oh, also, you know what? Another thing is Vince Vaughn says, I don't want you to be the guy in the PG-13 movie. I want you to be the guy in the R movie. And that's almost the exact same line. He says, we've had a PG-13 relationship, and I want it to be R. And then she...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
from that
That's
movie
a great
Scream.
point.
She says,
Yeah.
"Would you settle for PG?"
So I knew there was another reason besides the.
I was hoping.
Also, they cut out all the murder in Swingers. They all cut from the.
Yeah.
It's happening in the background.
Yeah.
At some point, Vince Vaughn becomes a serial killer that becomes a 16-year-old.
That's why
girl.
Rob disappears in the movie because he got stabbed to death in the second act.
I remember that being Rob's last scene, and I almost did that's a wrap on Ron Livingston and
Yeah, everybody
in my
applaud.
living room.
In your Ron living room?
In my Ron
What
living room.
seems harder? Dating when you just bump into random people and try to make something happen, or modern phone-based dating?
I mean,
Greg has that chunky phone now, so he's gonna be fine.
Yeah, dude. I'm gonna be working that phone. I'm gonna be
I
like
guess I
sitting.
meant app-based dating.
I'm gonna be on my belly, right? And I got the phone up, and I got my my feet kicked up, and I'm just like sort of twirling them, and I'm just working that phone, going through my napkins with ladies' numbers.
I've told my wife multiple times, not as like a threat or anything, but if she ever leaves me, that is it. That's a wrap on Ryan as far as any sort of probably physical contact. That'll be the last time I am touched, much less am in a relationship. I can't imagine doing either one at this point in my life.
No.
Live,
They all look like literal hell.
well, if you look at the anxiety levels, I'm sure Ryan can tell us better than anyone. But everyone seems so miserable on those apps that I don't. I didn't I never experienced those apps. By the time they really hit popularity, I already met my wife. But dating when you were out of bars or parties, it wasn't so bad. You didn't,
This is what I'll break in and talk about my parasocial relationship with Conor. I met Conor 20 years before I met him because of his podcast, and his co-host will often bring up what a fucking just babe hound he was. And Conor was pulling ass left and right his entire life. So
I was single in New York for my 20s. I had a good time, but I mean, we don't. This is not the podcast for it, but when you're dating at a bar, you don't have the seeming endless options that the apps seem to provide you. Therefore, never feel the need to make a connection ever because there's someone better could be one swipe away.
You know how it's hard to pick what to watch on Netflix?
Right, exactly.
There's just so much stuff. Yeah. But say you're in just a video store and you're like, I have to watch something tonight.
Yeah.
And you're going to find a VHS to watch that night, right?
Even though Blu-rays have been out for years, Greg's still taking home a VHS for some reason.
Honestly,
With his
there's
phone.
a classic feel. There's a warmth,
There's a warm, staticky fuzz
Yeah.
to the VHS when you're watching it.
I love that warm fuzz on whoever I take home.
We have another entrant into the canon of New Yorkers coming to LA. Does this have anything new to add to that tradition?
I think so. And this is a part of the Woody Allen thing, too, is, Annie Hall is back half takes place in LA, and Woody Allen is famously New York. Famously a lot of other things, so I'll make this quick. But I think there's that idea of if it was all people who started in LA, then we wouldn't have that person looking around and saying, look how crazy LA is,
stranger in a strange land, right?
Right. If Rob's last scene, he says, no, the gun thing was no big deal. I finally have my LA gun story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a part where Mikey is wearing a Brooklyn Dodgers hat and a Queens sweatshirt.
We get it.
My dad was born in Brooklyn and my mom was born in Queens. So this is kind of like the story of me, really. Moving the East Coast experience transplanted to the West Coast,
This last question, I think we know Ryan's answer, but how many times have each of us stood on a table in public and screamed, "You grown-ups and you grown-ups and you grown-ups"?
More than once for you, Ryan? Was this just the one time?
I was going to say, we don't know my answer. We've heard about the one of the times. I don't actually know.
You have done it when it's just me and you at your house. You jumped up on the table for some reason.
Well, I was naked and I wanted to show you.
And you don't want to know it was grown-ups. That is all the time we have for questions. We're going to take the quick breaks, and when we come back, it's awards season. Can you guys believe that Swingers won no Oscars?
What?
Yes.
I would expect at least the writers, maybe. But that's not going to be tonight. We're going to give it all the awards because it's the only movie in contention. Let's start, before we get to the awards, with our recommendations. Conor, let's start with you.
So this is tough because I think the natural one, as we talked about so much, is already is Clerks. And then I think if you go the other way, probably the most famous movie of this type, meaning a bunch of actors were like, my career sucks, I'm going to write a script, is Good Will Hunting. But everyone knows that one. So I'm going to go for a weird one. Actually, I've got several choices here. I'm going to go back on my word here. I'm going to go for Office Space.
Yeah.
Because you don't get enough Ron Livingston in this movie. And so then you get all the Ron Livingston in Office Space, and he's terrific in that.
Yeah.
Weren't the
Perfect in
Goodwill
it.
Hunting guys and the Swingers guys, were they all Rudy guys?
Yes.
That's funny.
They were. or was it all Rude or Vince?
Oh, no. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck were what's the Brendan Fraser?
Oh, that's, the anti-Semitism in football movie. Yeah. That's right. But they were all around.
They were football guys.
Yeah. Did it for you, Rudy.
All right, Greg, what's your rec?
My recommendation is B24. There is just a certain magic to being 24 years old. No.
This is the second, this is the second coolest movie studio.
That's fuck off.
Right.
The only problem with this movie is I think is incurious about the inner life of women. And so if you want to explore what it's like to be a woman, I recommend you play the Switch Nintendo game Zelda, which that just came out. You actually get to play as Zelda, so it will help put you in that
No, like in
mindset.
every game.
No, you did. Honestly, that's a common misconception.
Don't take the bait here, Greg.
So that is my recommendation, Zelda.
Well, they're great games. That is probably the best I just thought of this that we've had on the run of this show.
But I mean the most recent one that just came out.
Yeah, for sure.
Breath of the Ocarina.
No, not that.
Ryan?
Yes. My recommendation. So yeah, I was trying to find something that isn't talked about that much anymore. We've said so many movies that we think inspired this movie. And, I want to talk about the Before trilogy, but we talk about that constantly. There's one tiny little movie that was sort of about the lives of 20-somethings, far more 20-somethings than this movie. But it sort of bridges the gap between Swingers and this fucking horrible run of like Gary Marshall every holiday gets a movie with, 20 people getting their own story.
New Year's Eve.
On
Mother's
New Year's
Day.
Eve. This one is on New Year's Eve.
Leap
But,
Day.
Now, I know what you're going to say, and I love it.
What is it, Mike?
200 cigarettes.
I think that 200 Cigarettes is a very undervalued movie, and it goes much deeper with these characters. It's no Can't Hardly Wait, and by that I mean it's way, 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 way better. But like, if you're going to talk about the whole, everybody's hanging out in the city at night, I think that this is a pretty good one.
Yeah, that movie rules. Mine is closer to listeners. If you're closer to our age than you are 24, it's very much about asshole dudes, but this one I think gives more voices to the women in the movies, and the asshole dudes kind of get their comeuppance and learn. It's Sideways. I got a lot of Sideways vibes throughout this, and a lot of like different kinds of pretension, but it's just older pretension. It's just older pretension with money and talking about wine instead of movies.
I mean, all you have to do is be very confident in what you're talking about and not hear anybody argue with you.
Yes. All right, and now to our awards. Let's start with 90s slang Greg.
Okay. There's a lot to choose from here. But the one I think I'm going to go with is money. I feel like that really persisted in the culture and really does find its origin for the most part. For most people that use it, they use it in some loose reference to this movie. So 90s slang, that's so money.
Fun story about money. I don't have enough of it. And there was apparently a commercial with Spike Lee and Michael Jordan, and he just calls Michael Jordan money instead of Michael. And so Favreau was writing this and went, well, cool people say that.
Yeah.
Oral histories, guys, are fun as hell.
Good idea. I'm going to do some research. Let me just turn on this TV.
Conor, what's your 90s slang?
Well, I mean, money's the obvious one, but I'll say I listened really hard in the two viewings, and I think the only one they use in the movie that isn't one they're basically inventing like money, even though Spike Lee did it first, and isn't a 40s slang, is when they're in Vegas and Trent says, "I'm looking like the bomb." That That was the only one I could find in the film that I thought was actual 90s slang that was being used.
No, Mikey, you're all that and a bag of chips.
Ryan, what's yours?
I think that I know that Conor had said that this is from the 40s as well, but I only know it as 90s. And watching this tall, geeky white guy say "gat" just took me back in time.
Gets that one. The "I'm the bomb" sticks out because it feels so specifically 90s and not invented here. All right, next up is musical moment. Ryan?
I already called it the best part of the movie, the best moment, so I think it has to be music. And it is that slow song that Mikey's sort of confident in doing, to the fast song where he does just look around at these incredible everyone around him is an athlete level choreographed dancer, and he's like, well, I don't want to look stupid. And Mikey, that's been your problem this whole time, like you're so scared of losing that you never try to win, and once he started, and they don't become athletes, they just become together, and that's the musical moment. And it is, of course, repped by big bad voodoo daddies. Is it Go Daddy-O?
Go Daddy-O.
Yeah.
Go Daddy-O.
That is a good one. Greg?
When they go back after the night on the town with the waitress and her friend Dorothy, and they go back to the camper, and for one beautiful moment, it looks like they're both going to hook up before both the boys blow it in their own way. But there's the breakdown from the Heart song Magic Man. This is such like a groovy jam. Magic Man, it's got that 70s groove, and there is like this cool breakdown, and they take the breakdown, they put it over the beginning of the scene, and it captures the moment perfectly because you feel like, oh, this is all going to work out. But it doesn't, Mike.
That comes standard with every trailer. That song is just playing.
It's funky, dude. I would love that. That's a great
soundtrack
trailer.
to
It's got that
Airstream.
50s look. It's perfect for the ethos of the movie, really.
Conor, what is your musical moment?
I had the Big Bad Voodoo Daddy moment as well. It's for all the reasons Ryan said, but also the song is so great because it's just so much horns, and they just say "Go Daddy-O" a lot instead of the earlier song where there's some flat singing. But it's just such a propulsive, fun song. The horns really make it. You just like listening to it. I think I rewound that sequence 3 or 4 times to catch a lot of the nuances, but also because I really liked the song and the sequence and how it was cut earlier. Someone, I think Greg, said he's so good at cutting music.
Yeah.
He's just so good at it. I also have Altered saying all of it. The soundtrack is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And we were talking before the show. It's not available on vinyl, and I'm a white guy in my 40s. All my music I listen to on vinyl, and I'm so angry that I can't listen to the soundtrack because my turntable won't play a CD.
They put out 2. There's so much good music. They put out 2 official Swingers original Motion City. You got to know what I'm trying to say.
It just has such a great depth of music, from Dean Martin to George Jones to Big Bad Voodoo Daddy, Bobby
to
Darin.
Heart.
Yeah, to
Heart.
Heart. I mean, there's just so
Magic
much interesting, fun stuff, and it all really works. Even the opening Dean Martin song, "You're Nobody Till Somebody Loves You,"
Yeah,
is the theme of the film.
Did you know that guy is the actual father of the actress? I guess that's why they got that song, because she's going to be in the movie. It's like, hey, my dad has a song if you want it.
I don't think Heart is on the initial soundtrack, but the fact that I know every word to King of the Road, thank you, Swinger soundtrack. Like,
hell
you did that for me.
Conor and Ryan are going to share that one for that Big Bad.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's everybody but me. That's the best.
You said breakdown management. You didn't say that part. Next up, let's see if you can steal it, Greg. What is your cringe?
Okay, what if they made the whole movie out of cringe? There's so much to choose from here. But the moment that really caused me to cringe the hardest is when Mikey ruins 4 people's chance to have sex by bailing
Like a bank
on
shot.
Yeah, he really 4 people are about to get down, and they've put in all the work. It's a tremendous amount of time to get from there to here. And
Dorothy's into it.
Yeah, and he just ruins it for everybody. And when he's like, I got to go into the room where Trent is with, it's just I'm like, man, don't do that. I'm yelling at the screen like it's a horror movie. Don't go in there, man. Don't go in there.
What's even crazier is his girlfriend's on the East Coast, and he's assuming she may have called. It's
Yeah.
got to be 3 a.m. in
Yeah, what do
Vegas,
you
so
do?
that means it's 7. She called you at 7 a.m. from New York to like talk.
And this is after 6 months of no phone calls,
Right.
but I have to
Yeah.
check right now.
It captures so well that a breakup is and this kind of grief is a specific kind of like mental illness.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
you are not in reality anymore, and nobody can talk you out of it.
And
Yeah.
it's such a great scene too, because we were talking earlier that Trent probably could have swung a threesome if he had tried a little bit harder. But then Mikey does, because Trent's all about the sex and Mikey's all about the comfort, and he gets
the double
both.
hug.
Yeah, he gets the double hug, and so he won in Mikey world.
All right, that's a good one. Ryan, what do you got?
I have to go with, and I do think that you guys talked me into the fact that it is character based and it's fear and it's brokenheartedness, but I think it's the fact that he never picks a different word. It's just skank, 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 as if he was in a ska band and not a swing band.
Ooh, bonus point there.
Right.
And it's also specific there. The first time in his rant, he says half of them are nasty skanks who'd be nothing if there weren't horny, drunk assholes around
Yeah,
them.
dude.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of saying the guys are worthless too, but it's still all the vitriol is so specifically aimed at the women.
And you
Guys
want
will
to
write a
front
screenplay
me?
instead of seeing a therapist.
All right, Connor, what's your cringe?
I'm going back to the original viewing of Swingers in the fall of '98 in dramatic script writing, which I got a B+ in, so studios hire me for your script writing needs. We all basically wanted to melt into the ground during the answering machine scene where he gets Nikki's number.
Yeah.
He leaves her a message. Again, kids, this is to an answering machine, not to a voicemail or anything. And the first message is fine. It's maybe too soon, but it's fine enough if she hears that she's not going to hate it. And okay, call back a second time because the number gets cut off. But then this is the third call where he goes into his whole pathos of what's happening in his life, and it's not going to end. And if every successive call, your body starts to fold in on itself, and you want to die.
Yeah.
It's so good.
The best time to stop was always the call before the one that he made, but the next best time to stop would be like right then, and he just keeps adding on one more call.
Nikki, hi. Were you listening the whole time?
Oh, so you were home. Okay. He's calling her at like 2:30 in the morning.
Yes.
But like, I got to give props too that like whether it was Favreau or Liman, it wasn't one Mikey phone call too many or too much. It was that was like the perfect amount of oh my god,
And also
Yeah,
kind
so
of
cringe, so fun.
in the vein of like the movie sometimes having that like some surreal elements. One of the times he's leaving a message, the time he has is like 1 second before
It gets shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
Like it's like psychosis going. I have an honorable mention to his painted on beard. The next scene, where it's only been 2 days, but somehow he's got like a week growth on his face.
Well, that's his mentality.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I had Ryan's, but Greg's ruining 4 people having sex, and what a travesty that is.
Right.
I'm going to do that one. Greg just wants everybody to have sex and have fun, guys.
That is very true.
Pound for pound performance. Connor, who's doing the most with... I was going to say the least, but the most with what they
Listen,
got.
the easy answer is Vince Vaughn, and no one would be wrong to say that, but I'm going to go with my boy Ron Livingston again as Rob, who does a lot in the 3 or 4 scenes he's in. And I also feel a lot of kinship towards that character because you can tell he's not part of the group because when they go out to the party, he's wearing a T-shirt and a flannel shirt where they're all dressed up. And that's his idea of dressing up, and that's exactly how we dressed in college when we were living in LA, and that's why we never got any phone numbers on napkins. I like that little visual indicator that he's not really part of this gang.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't really subsumed into the culture where they're all dressed to the nines.
He's got to get a wallet chain.
Dude, I mean,
There are some epic wallet chains in this movie. Chains that, like, okay,
down to the knees.
The wallet is chained to you, but if the chain is like 6 feet long, the guy is still pretty far away by the time that comes into play.
He's gotten all your cash at least.
And he's at full speed, so then it's just going to rip right off your pants, right?
Sue's wallet chain is roughly the size of the chain that Jean Valjean pulls at the beginning of Les Mis to lift the ship out of the ocean.
Ryan.
Love a Les Mis drop. Greg, who's your pound for pound?
Connor said it was the easy answer, and I was like, that's Greg for you.
But you see the strategy there, right? Like Conor gets to have his
negged
point,
it.
but then
I
you
just-
lose yours.
Yeah. The whole point of pound for pound performance is like give it to somebody who's maybe not in the movie that much, and then they do, and then just every week I'm just like, I liked the character that was in the movie the most.
You know the guy who's on the poster?
Yeah.
Cheersing this?
But this is Vince Vaughn, America. This is your new guy, and you're gonna love him through so many roles. See the last segment about his career, right? And he's so money, and I like. It's not just his being Trent, the womanizer. It's like those moments where he's telling the story about the like reading for the part, and then it's like for an
Great
11-year-old kid. And you see like or the end where he's like completely diminished. You have all these different sort of like versions of Trent that he is throughout the movie, but it's like a very organic series of versions of the same guy.
That's a great scene too, because Vince is telling the story and the girls are into it, and then you have Mikey trying to neg that, but with no comedy or thought.
Yeah,
just like you are taking the attention right now, and I don't love it.
Yeah, not charming.
Right.
Meanwhile, he's like in that whole process, he is kind of like co-opting some of Trent's charm.
Oh, yeah.
And like using it to like he should just be glad that that's going on, because Trent is getting him so close to the end zone, buddy. All you have to do is grab the ball and fall across the line.
That kind of Eeyore sourpuss is not happy. He's just still jealous that all this is happening because of Trent.
Yeah, I mean, he wants to be a little piss baby, right? Like that's what he wants. Yeah.
Well, the double down joke is legitimately funny. It's well, we all have stories. That kills the vibe. It kills the whole vibe in the whole trailer.
The ultimate reverse improv line.
Right, guy, what's your P for P?
I'm going to make it Favreau. He, to me, is a little bit like watching Mark Hamill in the original trilogy of just like, oh my God, this guy sucks. Is he getting cool? Will he just end up fine?
Yeah.
Can we get him to there? And will that work? And I think that his...
and there's a cool guy right there that you were like, oh, it could have been about him.
Especially imagine, and this doesn't count for this award, but imagine writing it and then handing him all the lines, or handing him the opportunity to make your lines better in every take. That's what's happening. But his looking around the room, his being like, who's watching me right now? I think that the movie takes him to a little bit of try hard scenes. Like I do think that when he is going through the box of pictures, he's really like, oh, I'm going to earn this. This is for your consideration.
Yeah.
But when I'm watching him listen to other people, like he's going through shit and he does a really, really good job. Unhappy Hogan is what I would call him.
Well, for that. But all of those are great. That was a bonus. That was not for the award. All of those are great responses. But I think in the described, in the breakdown, and sometimes the obvious is the obvious. Gets that one.
Greg, best performance of Swingers.
Thank you.
Greg as Mikey. Our final award, director's signature moment, Conor.
Well, we talked about it earlier. It's the only one I could really find in watching it, because I don't see the same director here as I see in his later work, other than the handheld camera work. To me, that's anytime he went handheld into the dancing or any of the action, like the whole House of Pain scene in the parking lot. That's where you really see the guys later on going to do the Bourne movies or Mr. and Mrs. Smith or Edge of Tomorrow.
It's a good one, Ryan.
I think we also talked about this one, but we've been talking about the movie for like 3 hours. So we talked about all of this at this point. I am going to go with I think it's the Dean Martin song, Going From Party to Party. Because that's the point where a very young director loses this screenplay that is clearly, outside of Vince Vaughn, the star of the show. And so how are you going to make this interesting? And I think that he fills it with jokes. He uses the music so perfectly, as we've talked about, to the point where we have the club choreographed to like the last 4 hits of the movie. But yeah, I think that whole caravan of travel through LA, which only takes 2 minutes, guys. Any point A to point B in Los Angeles, 2 minutes. No
it's so quick. Yeah.
I think that's the Liman-esque moment of the movie.
The Liman-iest. Greg?
This movie does something that I have seen, a move I've seen a lot of other movies make. So I'm not sure that this is actually a compliment entirely, but they talk about movies, and then you're going to see like the director do kind of like something from that conversation. So they talk about the Goodfellas, like a steady cam shot walking into the club. And then he does his own version of it, but it's like so stripped down and bare and feels like kind of like smaller, but in some ways like more intimate or something. And it feels like he's kind of, I don't know, winking at the audience in such a way where it's like, oh, I mentioned this and now I'm doing it myself here. And I've seen that move a lot. So I'm not sure it's like a super great move, but it's where I felt his presence the most in the movie.
Oh, that's your Lyman-iest move because you hate Doug Liman. That's what you're saying.
It just felt
going to.
I felt his presence more in that moment than any other time. You know, I felt like that. I felt so aware of a choice being made there.
That one struck me as better than the Reservoir Dogs because it was so separated from the conversation about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas the Reservoir Dogs is like a straight cut to it.
See what we just did?
But it was even before that. The whole spinning around the table is also Reservoir Dogs. So he does
Right,
a double.
exactly.
He does a double Reservoir Dogs.
Double ref.
Double RD. That one is going to Conor, which came under. I thought Greg was done, so I did it then, and I apologize. So, gentlemen, your winner, the 1996 Swingers episode, Best Friend for My Week and Your Week.
Whoa.
It's Conor.
Oh, back to back.
I thought Greg had this one in the bag.
No,
Greg.
I got so excited about the drum roll that I forgot to read the score.
Yeah, I felt like I came in third place.
Greg got 40, Ryan got 42, and Conor got 44.
Yeah.
Greg thought right. But still, fantastic showing all around. But the most
close.
fantastic Mr. Fox.
It was very, very
was
close.
Conor.
Could have been
Now-
there. Could have done it.
How do we think Swingers is going to do at the end of the season?
It was so fun talking about it, wasn't it, everybody?
I'm starting to see like two tiers here. Connor, so far in the season, we've done Larry Flint, Scream, Mars Attacks, and Swingers.
It's important to note that this is a fantastic year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really I mean, everyone talks about the 90s being like the last great indie cinema period, but it really kind of is. And your entire list you sent over as possible movies, I could have talked about almost any of them. I mean,
Yeah.
It was a really great year for movies.
If nothing else, the movies are all like fodder for talking about.
Yes.
Like there's so much to say about every single one of these movies.
These are all such lovely ways to say it doesn't have a fucking chance in hell.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how I feel. Like I feel like we had a lot of fun talking about it and stuff, but there were bigger movies, there were better movies, but
I'll coin my new catchphrase for the rest of the season. It was better than Mars Attacks.
Ouch. For the Mars Attacks lovers in us, that one hurt.
Ack.
But you're right. So thank you, listeners. Thank you, Conor. Do you want to do a brief plug about your show?
Sure. You can listen to iFanboy's suite of podcasts at ifanboy.com. We do a weekly show called The Pick of the Week where me and my co-host Josh and sometimes our friend Ryan talk about the best comics from the past week. We also do a monthly Media Explode show. We talk about non-comic book media. We do a bi-monthly interview show, a graphic novel review show, special edition reviews of films that come out, all kinds of stuff. We're constantly putting shows out over there. We've been doing it for 19 years. We just hit a 2000th episode recently.
Wow.
Over the course of 19 years, and we're heading on our 950th weekly show this month. So come check us out if you like comic books or just any kind of general nonsense, which is what we do.
Love general nonsense. My favorite general. Next week is Breaking the Waves.
Another fun run.
Fuck.
I know nothing about it. I assume it's kind of a Point Break-esque.
You're gonna have such a good time.
It's about
I
surfers.
love going in blind.
Get ready to laugh.
I'm going to put my laughing pants on. So watch that along with us, dear listeners. And until then, keep watching those movies.